So, grab that Twinkie. Oh, I love Twinkies. Somebody has to buy the hostess name and bring back Twinkies. But to talk about all that good stuff, the author of Fatlash, Kataline, thank you for being here.
It's good to be with you, John.
I've known you for a long, long time, but I had no idea you were a beauty queen.
See what you don't know about
I had
people?
No idea.
It's a wonder. I probably...
So you write a book about being a childhood beauty queen. What does that mean?
Well, my mother put me on the stage when I was 3 years old. And there were only a few pageants. So I was in pageants when I was 7, 8, and 9 in Denver, the Little Miss pageant.
So you lived the whole Jean Bonnet world.
I would say I did.
Really?
I would say that I did.
Did you enjoy that?
Well, it took me until my 30s to discover what I really felt about it. Because you see,
and you loved it. You loved it, right?
Yeah. No. And you see, I'm a natural extrovert. You can tell I'm really shy, right? And yet, children at young ages, they want to please their mom. And that's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to please my mom. And I thought I loved it. And it took me until at least 20 or 25 years later before I really understood how I felt about it.
Your mom was also a Jean Bonnet, wasn't she? She was a childhood beauty pageant contestant as well.
Not a child beauty pageant. They didn't have them back then. Because you see, now we have this thing that's exploding with toddlers and tiaras and Honey Boo Boo and all of that. It's really endemic to the culture. But when I was in child beauty pageants in the 60s, they were just starting. My mother was supposed to be the next Shirley Temple. And there's a picture in the book of my mother doing the splits circa 1931. And there's a picture that is a picture of me doing the splits.
You're cute. You were very cute.
Oh, thank you.
So what was the problem? Why, if moms want to get their kids involved in looking good and looking sweet, why was that a problem? Why did it take you into your 30s to get a handle on it?
Well, because this is sexualizing little girls. And this is why I wrote the book, is hopefully so that people will know what it feels like, and maybe we won't have another generation of girls that has to write a book like Fatlash. This is sexualizing children. And Martina Cartwright, who wrote the foreword in my book, coined a phrase, and she writes about it in my book, called princess by proxy.
Stage moms.
That's right. And
stage moms.
Parents who live through their children, and in fact, children really aren't there. They're really not there. Because this is the mother, usually mothers.
Yeah, I can't, that's why it's stage moms. Stage dads are getting drunk. There's no
or you have soccer dads
and
that kind of thing.
The Fatlash part. This is a book about eating.
Yes.
Connect those two for me.
Those are connected. Now, they're not always connected in everybody's story. They're two separate issues, but they're intricately connected, because what you have is a parent who's appearance obsessed and weight obsessed and food obsessed. My mother put me on starvation diets. I think you could call them starvation diets. They were 500 calorie a day diets.
You're Jewish. There's no Jewish moms do not put their kids on diets.
They do if they're suffering from princess by proxy.
I see.
And they do if appearance is really, really important. There's a woman who did an article for Vogue. Her name is Daryl Lynn Weiss, who was quite proud of the fact that she had put her child on diets. And what what people don't realize sometimes is that this need to display and show off their children. And when you are restricted, when your food is restricted, it's logical that you're going to have a backlash to that. I mean, I made it my business to steal food.
Let me put out an analogy, because this is what I truly believe on alcohol. As we keep putting alcohol at a higher and higher shelf for kids to get to, you know, we have the 18-year-old drinking laws, now it's 21. Now we have the Nazis out there who go around and make sure that no restaurant could accidentally serve anybody, that when kids finally get hold of the product, they go nuts. And that's why every couple of years up in Boulder, you see some kid who actually kills himself with alcohol poisoning. Whereas in Europe, when you're raised with a glass of wine, it doesn't. They don't understand that. You're saying, does the same thing hold with food for little kids? That when you withhold it, because there's a picture of you here in high school, you look a little different than you did as a little girl.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, when I was 16, I weighed 285 pounds.
Wow.
And so I made sure there would not be any more beauty pageants. Unconsciously, mind you.
280 pounds?
Yeah, 285 pounds.
Wow.
Yes,
that's a long way from being a Jean Bonnet to 285
That's
pounds.
Right.
And you did that really as a Fatlash. I get it, the book.
That's
Got
right.
It all works now.
And it's a complex issue because this happens for women as well. When they don't want to be sexualized, they can put on a lot of weight to protect themselves, obesity as protection. And it's a mistake to think, you know, right now there are black markets going on for chocolate syrup in places where they've banned chocolate syrup and they've banned junk food.
Like where?
Oh, in California. In a lot of places. So what you have are people who would not ordinarily have a weight problem, but when you put something off limits, people are going to make it their business to get it.
Boulder, one of the Fairview High School, there was a ring of guys who would go to Costco, buy candy bars, and then sell them in school because they took them out of the candy machines, and they were making a fortune off of it.
Yeah, and
brilliant.
And the thing is that what really we need to teach parents and the culture in general, if I could be so bold, is self-regulation. Freedom is the key because eventually people are going to have to learn how to self-regulate and to own their own body. It's about body integrity and body ownership. And when you're either depending on or rebelling against someone who's controlling your intake, and we could have a whole other discussion about whether that's right or wrong, and I don't think it's right. What you have is a fatlash. What you have is people doing the exact opposite just to get back at you, because that's not something that anybody should have control over another.
How did you go from 285 pounds in high school as a reaction to what your mom forced you into as a beauty contestant to where you are now? How long did it take for you to get your head around that, to lose the weight and bring yourself to so you could actually chronicle it in a book?
Read the book. Actually, a lot of therapy. I mean, I have an MSW from Columbia, and I'm very, very self-analytical. And so this book talks a little bit about, it tries to illustrate, I guess you could say I use myself as a guinea pig because I know my story better than anyone else's. And I use my story simply to illustrate these basic principles of obesity as protection, fatlash, fear of thin, where women actually become afraid of being thin because the things that they remember when they were thin are so painful that they really don't want to recall that. And this book talks only about 6 years of my life in which I was having some rather dramatic experiences as a result of some of the things that I had experienced as a child. So I gave you the long answer, but the short answer is lots of therapy.
Lots of therapy. I want to bring it to politics for a second, because we're now getting now to the nanny state of, you know, alcohol's pushed up. On one level, we're legalizing pot here, so people can consume what they want when it comes to recreational marijuana. But at the same time, we have this push for the Mayor Bloomberg, let's outlaw big sugary drinks. Let's have a tax on fats and trans fats. And let's do the same thing here in Colorado. Fast food restaurants need to post all their information. Now, other restaurants are going to soon have to follow, which is a difficult thing to do when you're not doing something in mass that has a consistency. And we're forcing nannyism onto people. Is there a backlash to that as well?
Without a doubt. That's another reason I wrote the book. Well, because when you put something, we've discussed it, when you put something off limits to people, it's going to become much more attractive. But beyond that, it's astounding to me that I grew up to watch a culture make a lot of the same mistakes my mother did. You have
an interesting
restriction diets,
so
and you have beauty pageants.
Mayor Bloomberg and your princess by proxy mom,
yes,
have the same thing. They want you to be healthy. They want you to look good. They want you to be thin, and so they're both going to put you on a diet for your own damn good.
That's right. And you should know that one of the aspects of Princess by Proxy is that really the truth of that clinically is that the child is neglected. You may think that they're smothering the child, but in fact the child is not there. So
how do you mean they're not there? I mean,
well, because when
you're doing your hair, you're doing your makeup, you're getting a tiara.
They're just an object. You're really not there, because children have to go through developmental stages in order to get to a healthy adulthood. What we have are a lot of children, a lot of parents who didn't really develop, didn't really get to a point of adulthood, and they're living, trying to grab their childhood back from their children. I didn't say it very well, but what I'm trying to say is that's part of the reason why, for example, my mother lived through me, because the same thing was done to her. So what you have is a generational issue. And to bring it back to a Mayor Bloomberg, you have someone who is a self-appointed food cop who thinks that they can actually control and manipulate what other people eat. Granted, he's not even a nutritionist, because, you know, a nutritionist would be smart enough not to do this. Talk to the eating disorder community, and they will tell you the smartest people in eating disorders would never do that, because they're working on the opposite side of things, trying to help people gain back their control.
It seems as though the nanny state wants to control us through the supply side. If we get rid of cigarettes and make them really expensive, we'll get booze and make it really expensive. If we outlaw trans fat, you know, there's no place in Colorado where you can have a beer and a cigarette and enjoy a steak. You know, then everybody will be forced to be healthy, instead of doing the thing that I think most people would do: converse with people, have a dialogue, and try to convince people of your point of view instead of compelling them and coercing them.
Well, the only time a person, child, adult, or anything else adult ever loses weight, just to bring it back to weight, is when they own their own choices and own their own body.
Trust
they
me.
cannot be
Trust
forced.
me, I'm still a victim. I want to make it. Karen, thank you so much. The book, Fatlash. You get it at Amazon or any other good place, a website as well, fatlash.com. I'm Jon Caldara. Join me next time right here on Colorado Public Television. Listen for me late nights on KHOW, Sundays particularly. Tell a friend about the Independence Institute, and we'll see you next week.